You just need to turn your mic on. You want me to turn it on? Okay.
6 o'clock, I'll call this meeting of the county board to order. We're all here except for District 7, which is vacant. We'll rise for a moment of silent prayer and the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting was posted by the clerk's office in accordance with the appropriate rules. We'll start with the consent agenda. Need a motion and a second. Supervisor Hartley, Supervisor Mary. Any discussion? Supervisor Burak. Hang on, let me turn on the microphone.
Okay, I have a comment on the consent agenda. I will vote no as a protest vote because the decision on whether or not to bring back the Samaritan Ad Hoc Committee was not included on the agenda despite several board members asking to have it included. By leaving it off the agenda, the chairman is making the decision on the issue by himself without input from the whole county board. The intent of the ad hoc committee would be to update information and to present a plan B in the event a buyer is not found. Those of us who requested to have this on the agenda would like our district's views represented.
Supervisor Bosser.
So I will also be a no on the consent agenda. I think this is a decision that all 21 of us should make. If the 21 of us decide that we don't want a backup plan, I'll respect that. But I really think this decision belongs with the entire body, especially given that several supervisors wanted this on tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Supervisor Bailey.
I agree with Linda and Chris. I have been walking around my district and my constituents are still expressing their concerns about the Samaritan and the sale. So I will be a no vote on the consent agenda also. Thank you.
Supervisor Krieger-Gundren.
I'm also going to be a no vote. I agree that I think that the whole board should at least talk about it. All the pros and cons. I know that on the 21st, it was a real shock to everybody to hear that that trilogy had fallen through. But I do think that we ought to at least talk about it and know that where everybody stands. I mean, that was such a shock to most everybody. I think a lot of people made a quick decision. And I do want you to know that when I was getting nomination signatures, I told everybody where I stood on the Samaritan. Not one person disagreed with me. So I want my district's voice to be heard.
Thank you.
I just want to say I've also been talking to a lot of people in my district and they definitely, some of them are angry. But they definitely would like at least a plan B. And this subject was on the Human Services agenda on February 28th. I would encourage everyone here to watch that video starting at about the 14-minute mark.
Supervisor Conrad.
With those comments too, I'll have to vote no also on accepting the consent agenda representing my constituents. And two, when I also go around and speak to them and knock on doors, they all have concerns about the Samaritan. And every month when I report off at the town of Polk meeting, which I just did last night, there's concerns of, you know, how we're not moving forward and exploring additional options to meet the needs of our community. So with that, I'll have to also vote no to represent my constituents.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Definitely take them under advisement for next month. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Can you raise your hands?
Can we have the nays raise their hands?
I'm gonna write their names down. You're good, you got it? You got them all? Okay. We have them, we're good.
Thank you. And we'll pass on to resolution 67, which is a commendation of David Linder. Need a motion in a second, Supervisor Krebs, Supervisor Dallas.
Oh, it's out there already. Whereas David Lindner has contributed 34 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas David Lindner has chosen to retire from his present position of land use inspector with the Natural Resources Department, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend David Lindner for his 34 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to him heartfelt thanks for his many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to David Lindner as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
Say a few words down over here by the microphone. Right here. They'll pick you up.
Please, and thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
I do have a few words. First of all, good evening, County Board Supervisors, Washington County employees, and past planning and parks employees, which included Ashley and Deb.
Scott.
So thank you also for being here. I'd like to thank the County Board tonight for this recognition. I see a few faces I've gotten to know through the years, County Board Supervisors, including Chairperson Schleif, Supervisor Krebs, and Supervisor Hartwig, who seems to have been around for ever in the day. He'll be mentioned again. So thank you also to all you. A wise woman who was a worker of mine for many years told me as a rookie land use inspector that you're not in this job to make friends. So due to the nature of this position, often telling people what they didn't want to hear, and even coming up with options that they weren't open to, I found this often to be the case. However, there have been many professionals that we work with where we have shared mutual respect for each other. and were able to collaborate and come up with alternative solutions. These people included plumbers, certified soil testers, surveyors, landscape architects, builders, and several lake property owners who were concerned about the health of our county lakes and wetlands. I appreciated their acknowledgement of some basic scientific facts involving development near water bodies. So now I'll lighten it up a little bit, just for a few minutes. So 34 years is indeed a lengthy period to stay with the same employer. However, I do want to add an accomplishment, which perhaps isn't as significant as the 34 years with the department, but it's important nonetheless. So in those 34 years, I was not involved in any vehicle accident. No things, no bumps, no damage. There was one incident, however, and this happened in Supervisor Hardwick's district, which involved a dog. While investigating the complaint, a large, seemingly friendly dog did run towards my county truck, which I smartly had yet exited. I think he smelled the dog going and made my turkey sandwich, I'm not sure. So anyway, while I was still in the truck, he rocketed towards the truck, jumped against the door and scratched the side of the door for a couple seconds until the owner followed him off. So fortunately, the highway department, thanks to Scott, but recently affixed an official Washington County sticker to the door. So what happened is that door protected, or that sticker protected the door for most of that. So, as I mentioned, I was there on a complaint follow-up. Perhaps the reason for the dog's anger was that he read the Washington County sticker. So I did voice my concern to the property owner, particularly since the pickup was quite new, but he, not surprisingly, was more interested why it was there. Another notable incident also involving the dog. While meeting with a lake property owner to discuss the proposed landscaping work on their property, a small nonstop barking dog latched onto my leg, creating a moderately painful sensation. The lady surveyed the damage to my leg, wiped a small amount of blood off, and then applied some type of magic potion to my injury. She was the wife of a well-known local dentist, and he must have shared all his first aid secrets with her. Either that or she didn't want the county attorney to contact me. So, one last incident, this one involved a flying insect. While meeting with a husband and wife, a German couple on Big Cedar Lake, I was stung by a wasp. So this very German lady applied some type of sticky paste to the affected area, which happened to be a large unprotected area, which the wasp must have first seen off my head. So she said this paste was raw to venom. Soon after this pasty application, I noticed several more wasps had become interested in the top of my head. I hurried our site visit a bit and quickly got out of there. I later found out that the secret potion was a mixture, a secret German paste was a mixture of water and brown sugar. Anyway, thank you, Chairperson Schleif, and County Board Supervisors. Receiving this is very special. God bless and thank all of you.
Our next item is the presentation of the strategic priorities for the next 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Board of Supervisors. Hopefully you've all had a chance to take a read through this document that we've put together over the last several months. Has been refined, and especially the last few weeks. I want to take an opportunity to thank my office, Fran and Lonnie in particular, in making it as pretty as it is. and Aaron making it as technical and hard to read as it is, and the whole cabinet for helping put this all together and start the process of what eventually become implementation of what I think is a very aggressive plan. Once again, for those of you who've been on the board for a while, you know that we do one of these every 2 to 4 years. So this now will be my 4th strategic priorities document at the county level. I'm not going to read through the whole document. You're welcome. But I would like to touch on each item. And if it pleases the chair, have any conversation that you wish to have along the way. The goal of today's discussion is simply to go through this in a public forum one time before you receive it again in final form. The executive committee will have this on their agenda next month, or I guess next week, this month. And this county board will make a vote on it in the month of April, handing off the execution to the next county board. So if you would follow along with me, please, on as we go through initiative number 1, next generation home ownership neighborhoods. This is specific to the developments similar to that we are currently experiencing in Jackson, as well as in the city of Hartford, which, by the way, we have some home closings that are coming very soon. If you haven't been in those neighborhoods recently, they actually look like houses that people are going to live in literally days. And they are very, very impressive. They look quite different in Jackson from what they look in Hartford, which is exactly what you'd want, but both impressive nonetheless. So we're very excited to have our first step in this process. As you'll notice, if you've read through this document, our goals of 1,000 homes by 2032 remain the same, but a number of things change, and I'll let you read those for yourself. Suffice it to say, as we've indicated really from the beginning, government can create the environment for quality of life, and it can do a hell of a job of stifling it. And I would argue to you that housing, starter homes in particular, we've done a pretty damn good job of stifling it over the last 50 years in particular. So next gen housing, home ownership 2.0 is really focusing on removing the red tape and hurdles that exist and coming up with different ways to do that. Initiative number 2, Hart and Homestead earned down payment incentive. I know for the longest time, people looked at next gen housing as one massive program and couldn't quite understand what the heck it was we were trying to do. But really it's 2 separate programs. We just talked about the one with the neighborhoods. This one is a down payment incentive. On April 4th on your desk and your table in front of you, we are having the official launching event at Signacast in Hartford, in the Hartford Industrial Park. This is the $20,000, up to $20,000 or 10% down payment initiative that's really focused mostly on getting people rooted in our community and giving back. I will point to the name. I give Epic Creative. They're located downtown Westcott. All the credit in the world for this name. It took a number of iterations, but I think it's perfect because it hits on 2 key things. Home is where the heart is, and Homestead. And Homestead, I think, is a nice reckoning back to kind of where ideas like this started. Many of you in this room are multi-generational Washington County. And if you're more than probably 4 or 5 generations, chances are you are a beneficiary of a homestead type program, which literally means somewhere in the last 150 years, your family came here, probably paid less than $20 for 160 acres of land. And all they had to do was build a house on that land, live there for 5 years and get back to their community. That was it. This program, over 150 years later, is very much the same. Many of you probably benefited from post-World War II America's VA loans. This has similar components to that. So I'm excited to roll that out in just the next couple of weeks and get that off the ground. The next initiative is Shared Planner. We talked about this at great length as part of the chief elected officials meeting in the county shared revenue program. I think it largely speaks for itself. We're literally sharing planning services with other municipalities. And we're excited for that opportunity, and I'm positive that it will complement the first 2 initiatives The fourth initiative, we spent some time talking about today. A number of you were in the room at the ag listening sessions, and you heard quite a interesting conversation about this, I'm sure, at your individual tables with farmers from across the county. In the coming weeks, committees will start contemplating a resolution that I'm proud to work with Supervisor Conrath on developing kind of a pilot program to do something we've actually talked about many times over the last 25 years, and that is look for how can we help with preserving farmland in this county with development rights and things of that nature, and working with local partners to do it. So we had some interesting revelations today at some of our tables about some of the pitfalls and things that we need to be aware of, but certainly an interest in this county as development continues to happen and Milwaukee suburbs and exurbs keep creeping out this way, that we try to protect our waterways and our farmland. Initiative number 5 is workforce attraction. As executive committee is certainly aware, and maybe some of you have seen, we used some ARPA dollars in the last year or so to do an initiative focused on attracting workforce to Washington County. As those of you who are in the workforce know, or maybe are familiar with, hiring has been very challenging for quite some time, especially post-COVID. That has ebbed and flowed in the last several months, but we really focused hard on trying to create tools and instruments to recruit people to work here in Washington County, particularly from places that saw closures or transfers or things of that nature. So places like Master Lock down in Milwaukee, or Aaron's up in Brillion, which is in the Fox Valley, Green Bay area, even in the northwestern part of the state. As a matter of fact, now would be a perfect time to go look for nurses, for example, up in Chippewa County and Eau Claire County, where they just had 2 hospitals closed because of staffing challenges. So this initiative has been focused on a pilot program in that variety. If we are to continue it, it would be a public-private partnership that I believe we would need to do. The next issue, and I should also mention, as you recall from our retreat when we first developed this information, we had a nice presentation from the team from RegalWare that kind of laid the groundwork for some of their needs, both short-term and long-term. The next issue is community partnerships. This is all about working together with municipal partners, or at least predominantly. First and foremost is water main replacement of lead laterals. As you all, or hopefully you all saw it, you were all copied the lead lateral grant programs, plural programs, that we have proposed to the city of West Bend. And by proposed, I mean given to the city of West Bend. The city has until the end of the month to get back to us on acceptance of that grant or declining that grant. As that proceeds, I've said to you, many of you before, and I'll say it again, if we can show the ability to work together, which hasn't happened for about 8 years now, I believe this is a program that is right at the heart of what county government exists for. It's right at the heart of the priorities that we have as an organization, and I think there's no reason it shouldn't continue. I think there's every reason it should continue, if you put it in the positive. And there's other municipalities potentially benefit if we can create a framework that's workable. So happy to go into that in more detail as committee meetings and things like that happen. But I'm very excited about the program that Scott has put together and we've got ready to roll. Fire and EMS, this is fully underway, as was reported at the ag listening session earlier today. This particular initiative has a task force already formed. They had their second meeting yesterday. Subsequent meeting is scheduled for the end of April. So they'll continue to roll along. I'm excited for that. In the weeks ahead, there's $2 million in fire and EMS grants. They'll begin to be rolled out. The first $1 million of that should be in the next few weeks. I believe that's going to Public Safety Committee next tomorrow morning. Next Wednesday. Thank you. So that is well underway, and as you can imagine, lots of opinions involved in that issue. The next initiative is the revolving loan fund infrastructure segment. We waited long enough to dot every I and cross every T on this initiative, or on this whole entire document, that this initiative is well underway. As you know, with some of the projects that we've done in the village of Kewaskum in particular. And I'm sure that we'll have more of those to come as well. Initiative number 4 is Washington County Higher Education 2.0. I will tell you, this initiative doesn't stop changing. From where we talked about it back in July to, of course, since then, Washington County's campus has announced closure. If you didn't see it yesterday, Waukesha County's campus is now closing at the end of next spring. Concordia University Ann Arbor looks like they will have some major change, if not closure. There will be more and more of these. And I think you can take it pretty well to the bank that since the largest 2-year campus of UW College is closed, pretty much every one of them is on the chopping block. That's Josh Schulman talking. It's not the universities of Wisconsin. I'm sure Jay Rothman has a different opinion. But when the largest one goes, they got to believe all the rest of them are going to go. So that continues to change. There's obviously an evolving landscape in the technical college world. We went from hesitancy, I will say, to put it nicely, to yesterday when UWM announced the closure of Waukesha. The president of WCTC was standing next to him saying, we're ready, willing, and able, and we're going to open a UWM center in our campus. That is quite the change from where we started from, where we had a veto of some dollars to help accommodate the same thing. So this one will continue to change, including what happens to that campus. There is no clear answer. I can tell you dozens of people interested, and dozens of mostly nonprofits interested. I'm sure private developers too, if we asked around. And I think how we handle that will matter greatly. So one of the initiatives you're going to see is when we get to the next board, having that conversation about what do we do with that 200,000 square feet, and what do we do with that 80 acres of very valuable property that we own. The next issue is community quality of life and well-being. Social isolation and loneliness. This is, as you all can imagine, a very complicated issue, and it traverses all of the cohorts of living, from the youngest to the oldest, everything from social media to being stuck in your house because of health issues or aging issues. And so studying this in particular and really coming up with a broad strategy is really what we're looking at in this initiative. Initiative number 2, this was one that was discussed by you as a group. All of these were discussed by you as a group, but this one in particular, it seemed from our analysis that it was a pretty broad consensus that aging-friendly communities get taken out of this strategic priorities document for many reasons, not the least of which is the city of West Bend just did an initiative of this kind with AARP, and therefore no reason to duplicate effort. Initiative number 2, Anti-Crime Plan B execution and outcome measurement. Again, next week, Wednesday morning, I believe the sheriff is preparing to give a bit of an update on where we're at with Anti-Crime Plan B. And then, as you can see, there's a number of initiatives, including following up on the crisis responder units or co-responder units, as far as how we fund and budget those in 2026 and beyond. The Washington County Fair Park and Agricultural and Industrial Society, revisioning step 2 and beyond. Now that there's new leadership involved out at AIS, and we had again a really nice conversation with the agricultural community again today. Bless you. Now we're beginning to get to execution mode, especially as they get staffed up and their team gets built out. We begin to talk about what the future looks like. Just in this past week, Supervisor Mary and Supervisor McCulloch joined me and some of our team out down at the rave to have a deeper discussion about that industry, what's happening all across Southeast Wisconsin, but even across the country. What does that look like? The next steps for the county, or may not look like? And then, where do we go from there? So we are at the very, very early stages, I would say, of this discussion of actually creating a vision for that property and a stronger and stronger partnership with AIS. The next issue is small and effective government. First initiative is shared service grants. I think you're all familiar with these. I shared the memorandum that I gave to chief elected officials several months back. This is very much about execution at this stage. You're going to continue to see probably nearly on a monthly basis, partnership after partnership with municipalities on everything from a potential shared deputy to shared IT services, to the shared planner that we talked about earlier, grant programs with fire and EMS and more. So I'm excited to kind of continue to keep this going. I will tell you that a dashboard is in the process of being completed as we speak by Aaron and our team, and you'll have a continual update on that initiative. Excuse me. Initiative number 2. I will admit this particular issue seemed to get a little bit of a lackluster response when we talked about it as a group. I think it would be I left it in and I didn't give it a lot of definition because I think we would be making a terrible mistake if we did not pursue the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. We have hired an additional attorney in Brad's office, and a large part of that individual's responsibility will be to coordinate this coordinating council. I think everybody would agree that there are a variety of concerns about things like bail and bonds and sentencing and all kinds of things related to the justice system. And you and I really have no involvement in those things except for purse strings. Well, the way to have conversations is through the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. At least that's how I'd like to see it set up. That's how I'd like to see it work. If there's going to be any changes, it's going to have to be through a collective, and this has got to be that group. So hopefully this council becomes a vehicle through which to see some of those conversations through, rather than waiting until election season and everybody pounding the table. Initiative number 3 is artificial intelligence. As you can see, this is a relatively simple initiative in terms of what you will see, what you might do. Behind the scenes, there will be a fair amount of work putting together kind of a white paper on what might be things that are worth us investigating time, money, and resources in. This was one that I had contemplated removing just because you can see there's a long list of initiatives here. This is pretty ambitious. As I said before, maybe even aggressive. But Aaron's very interested in artificial intelligence and wrote this entire report with it. I'm just kidding. This was done by AD, not AI. So anyway, we're excited to kind of see what opportunities lay out there. There are a number of counties across the country who are using artificial intelligence in different ways, so we want to learn from that. Initiative number 4, everybody's familiar by now with the Transportation 2050 plan. This is making it a 2060 plan. As we all know, the years don't stop going by. If you don't believe me, just look at the president who was here in Milwaukee today. So this one will continue on the path that we've been funding for the last several years, keep us on track with having that plan fully funded, and provide updated numbers, including what projects have been completed and what might that free up dollars to do other things and so forth. Finally, Initiative 5, County Campus Master Plan execution. This is already in process. Some of you are more familiar than others. We have approved pieces such as the County Attorney's Office, moving over to the Justice Center, County Board Chair, and staff moving up to the 3rd floor. And now the Executive Committee has started the process of what happens to the main floor, the 2nd floor of this building, as the Court Treasurer and Register of Deeds try to move those 3 offices closer to the front entrance of the Justice Center. That'll be one step of probably thousands of steps. So as you can see, these are, the initiatives, as I said, are, aggressive or ambitious. I'm excited to pursue them, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have, concerns.
Supervisor Bosser, give me a minute to turn on your.
Okay.
All right, so I was not here at the planning meeting last year. I had a pre-planned trip, so I missed it. I would have advocated for the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. Because I know that right now, the district attorney, the sheriff's office, and the courts by design are set up not to speak to each other, except in the courtroom when they're all there. So it's hard when something's not working right. There's no feedback to try to fix it, right? That's what this is designed to do. So I absolutely would have spoken support of that if I was at that meeting. I wasn't there, so I appreciate that initiative, and I want to thank you for that. I do want to note with the campus master plan, and I noted this at executive as well. While some of the near-term projects that are smaller dollar projects make sense, and I'm okay with, when we start talking about the more long-range items, specifically the public agency center across the street, moving that to this side of the street. I'm of the opinion that that should be delayed as long as possible. That's a big ticket item. I believe government should generally shy away from big building projects, and that should be the last result. So thank you.
I believe property should be on the tax rolls.
Supervisor McCooley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh, I just wanted to note on here, and this is a lengthy list, as you said, and it's, there's a lot on there, right? That's a big apple. So at the retreat, Initiative 5 with regard to workforce attraction, I didn't like that as a category on a number of levels. And I think of all the things that are on here, it should have the last, least, or even just be eliminated. If you look at the punch list that we put together, this really all comes back to quality of life, right? Attracting people, which just brings workforce. In other words, that's just sort of the end result of all these other things. We start getting out over our skis and just, too spread out when we start bringing things like this. This is when we're getting into things that's a private sector. I mean, I have a ton of respect for companies like Regal. I want, manufacturing companies to be successful. I'm going to do everything I can in this role to create an environment that, from a taxation standpoint and a cleanliness and a public safety standpoint, makes it attractive. But I'm not wanting to do much beyond that. That's their job, right? I'm an employer, and so nobody's helping me. And we're doing the things that lead to that. And I didn't like it at the retreat. And this one right here, it's really one I would consider eliminating or making last, least priority, in my opinion. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I would appreciate more feedback on that.
Supervisor Gallons.
Thank you, Chair. So Executive Showman, you obviously made it very clear going through here, there's a lot. So we collectively, administration, this board, really going to have to be able to prioritize and to be able to shift, with competing priorities, right? As well as I think if we don't identify success criteria, how do we know if we were successful? And not to monetize things, but was there return on the investment in which of time or effort or et cetera? Did we actually obtain or achieve the desired outcomes or success criteria? So that's, I guess, what's missing here, and that's part of the sausage making, right? So I get that will come, but I think all of us need to keep that in mind, that as any one of us in our committees that likely will be involved in some of these initiatives, we really should be thinking about, how do we define success? Oversimplifying it, what's your problem statement, and that's your solution, and how do you define success? Thank you.
Supervisor Schulteis.
Thank you, Chair. This is initiative for the land and water conservation, farmland preservation. I realize this is a high level bullet point document, just digging into the weeds a bit.
how are we looking at being protected, especially a purchase of our farmland from China?
So not related to this initiative at all. I mean, certainly something that land use and planning committee should discuss and have conversation about. But this one really is more about an initiative that 25 years ago, the county, 25 years ago this year, in 1999, the county investigated development of property development rights, PDRs, basically purchasing or putting land easements on county land in cooperation with farmers specifically, but also large landowners. Basically, the ticket price was too much. I believe there was referendums back in those days, and those failed. They didn't fail everywhere. They didn't fail here in Washington County. We never really, as I understand it, similar to Supervisor Gallus' point, we really never explained what's the goal, what are we trying to accomplish, and when do we know when we arrived there. What we learned today, or at least what I learned today, was having a program established in a close working partner with someone like Cedar Lake Conservation Foundation, for example, that can give us the ability to actually start to identify, because until you're in the process, and there was a couple of farmers who made it very clear to us, until you're like almost to the point of signing, you don't know what you don't know. So there's definitely advantages. You all saw the presentation from CLCF a few months ago. I mean, farmland's getting chewed up left and right. So I think it's a worthwhile effort to have a program of this variety, but it wouldn't specifically be to China or anybody else for that matter purchasing land. I will mention that initially I was thinking we could start very small with, $250,000 or something like that. And Supervisor Conrad and I had that discussion and kind of laughed amongst each other and said, $250,000 doesn't get you anything in Washington County, which is true. We purchased how many pieces of property recently. So you'll see I think in the resolution coming forward in the next month or so, the first proposal will be $500,000. Like, let's try one, let's see what works, and then come back to the land use and planning committee.
Thank you.
Supervisor Killen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh, this whole strategic initiative, when we put this together, it was broad reaching. It had a lot of different angles to it. Because I think that's what makes county government work. There's a lot of different moving parts that all have to work together cohesively, such as you have to have places for people to live. You have to have jobs for them to go to. Quality of life is having good parks, but it's also having clean, safe neighborhoods, a good paying job. If you know the history of West Bend, early on, West Bend was a manufacturing hub north of Milwaukee. It had major corporations, West Bend Industries, Gell Corporation, Amity Leather, myriad of very broad-based manufacturing. Somewhere in probably the late 70s, early 80s, the founding fathers or the fathers of our community here in West Bend sort of abandoned that idea that we needed jobs here, that we should become more service oriented. And I think that really contributed to the downfall of West Bend and a lot of the good paying jobs that used to be here, such as Gell Industry, Amity Leather. All the previous are gone, or at the very least are very small portions of what they used to be in this town. And they do exist in other places, just not here, because we weren't favorable to them. So when I think about workforce attraction, when I think about the next generation housing, all these things tie together to make this plan work. And I know there might be certain portions of this that you may have a little issue with or whatever, but look at it more as the whole document, what you're trying to accomplish here. Because like I said, there's many moving parts that are all coming together here, and we can't really omit too much of this because I think all of them are important in their own way. I hope that kind of ties it all together. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Krieger Gunner.
Well, you probably know I'm gonna talk about NGH. I think we need to admit that it hasn't been the big success that we thought it was going to be. The goal was to have affordable housing for people who make $20 an hour. That has not been the result of what happened in Jackson, surely. Somebody that originally started out as $200,000 to $250,000 homes, which the lender said was very affordable for somebody making $20 an hour. With their overtime, maybe even with additional income in the family. And I think the document says family income of about $76,000. I found that on the PowerPoint. So we haven't met that goal at all. We increased the values from 320 to 420. In Jackson, I just looked at the builder. The builder says starting price at $370,000 for a new home. There's 3 houses in the project that are priced and they're active at $490,000, $485,000, and $470,000, even above our maximum. So I think we have monies remaining in the next gen housing. We ought to retool that, look at it. How can we spend that money to meet our goal, which is having affordable housing for those people who need it? I initially was going to say, give the money back to the taxpayers, but there is a need for affordable housing, but this program, not meeting it, not even close. We can't affect what happens in the market. We can help people buy a house, surely, but we can't make the market, especially now in inflation. Interest rates have gone way up, and I hope that we can be big enough to look at this and say, okay, we need to do a better job on NGH.
Well, first and foremost, you should probably check the facts. There's not a single house in Jackson that's selling for $490,000. I would encourage you to go back and find.
I haven't. I just looked it up yesterday, and it is in that plan.
Sure. Well, anyway, I'm not gonna argue with
Yeah.
you about.
But
facts that
we
you're
should at least look at
picking out
it
of-
because that's
Well, we
your
should
fact.
look at it.
My facts are accurate. I looked up.
That's okay.
No. It's what they're pricing it on. It came right off of their website. And we should be big enough to look at that and say it's
Oh,
not.
there's plenty to look at. There's no
Yeah,
doubt about it.
absolutely.
If you're for affordable housing, you're welcome to pursue affordable housing. I'm not interested in affordable housing. I'm interested in home ownership. That's what I'm interested in. And I'm assuming the state legislature is interested too, because their program is almost identical to our program, since they approved it overwhelmingly out of the state assembly and the state senate, and the governor signed it. It's gonna be a program that's almost exactly the same thing, but there's one major hurdle that's holding it up. And whether you want to admit it or not, it's local government regulation and fees. So yeah, we have all the control in the world and we exercise it every single day.
Okay, so I wasn't planning on debating this tonight.
I don't
That
think you were.
the $10 million is county taxpayer money. People in the townships get no benefit from that. People in the villages that don't have NGH get no benefit from it. I have it right here. There are 3 homes on Maplefield Circle. Those are the 3 homes I'm talking about.
Maplefield Circle's not in those.
Daisy, it is in that subdivision. And Daisy Drive, is that in it? Harbor, okay, let me turn to another.
Harbor
page.
Homes is one of the corporations of Newman Company. They're quite large. They have
Okay.
several developments in this county.
Well,
We're happy to
I'll
talk about it.
I'll stand corrected, but there are no homes that have been in that price range of $200,000 to $250,000. And nobody
I think we could all agree Biden inflation is.
And $320,000 is way beyond the means of somebody making $20 an hour or $76,000 a year as a total home income.
I also wasn't prepared to debate, so we can,
Yep,
Take it offline
and
and have
we
a
should
debate.
do that at the executive committee.
sounds great to me.
Supervisor Watts, comp rec.
Yeah, I just wanted to reflect Supervisor Gallett's comments about identifying goals, like how are we going to measure this and make it quantifiable? That's just the world I live into, and that was my only my main comment on this, so I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else want to comment?
Can I just ask for a little bit more discussion on the workforce initiative? Because I completely appreciate that perspective, and it was a large part of the discussion, if you remember, at this retreat.
Yeah.
And it's it's a pretty different view from what I heard when we left. So I have no problem, but we've already put 6 figures into that initiative.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down the path of doing another 6 figures or, starting to work with local employers, and it will take a lot of energy. So if there's a consensus that let's stay away from it, we'll pull it out before next week.
I would pull it out. Personally.
And I most certainly would not. The workforce initiative, Washington County is dependent on tax collections and growth. That's just how it works in government. We have major corporations that pay major bucks in taxes and use very little services. That's where a vast majority of monies come from the sales that they do in the form of sales tax, property taxes. There's just tons of stuff. They pay a lot of money, but they don't have kids in schools. They generally don't use firefighter services all that much or police services all that much. They're basically cash cows. It sounds rude to say it that way, but it's just fact. But you need to keep those businesses here. And the way to do that is give them good access to a good workforce. And right now, with the problems and challenges that we're facing and trying to address in this document, such as having affordable housing for people to live in, is one of the ways that we're trying to attract workforce. We have, over 1,200 jobs last I heard in Hartford that were unfilled, that were $20, $25 an hour jobs. Drone manufacturing comes to mind, a lot of the other major industries out there that they can't fill. At what point do these factories do like Gell Industry and Amity Leather and all the rest of them just say, look, we love it here. We love being part of the community, but it doesn't make sense for us anymore. We can't find the workers that we need to put out our products and make our profits. So why not move our factory to Milwaukee? Why not move it somewhere else? Then we sit here with no tax collections, no businesses, no jobs, because we're afraid that we might be helping a business find employees. This is vital to our growth and our ability to move forward. All the things that we pay for in this room come from the working class people and the factories and business. That's where our taxes come from. Poor people don't pay taxes. Businesses do, working class people do. And we need to make sure that we have a good, healthy workforce. Believe me, when I told you the story of West Bend, this is what happened to West Bend. It's still suffering today from the lack of loss of manufacturing here in the city. And it can happen in Hartford, it can happen in Germantown, and it will. Because people don't want to have to all commute up from Milwaukee and work at jobs out here. They just don't. We need to find a way to attract good workforce. We have the good paying jobs. That's not even a question. They have good health insurance and all the rest of that. But that just isn't enough. One of the big problems is getting them housing and trying to find ways to convince them. If it might be mass transit, there might be a million different ways, but we need to do it because we have to protect our workforce. It's very important. to our economic outlook and our future. Thank you.
Supervisor Gallons.
Thank you, Chair. On the same subject, yeah, I struggle too with that being a priority initiative, and my further comment is what would the objective and how do we measure success? So maybe I could offer a different approach to that piece about workforce attraction. Executive Showman, you mentioned earlier about previously, sorry, about next gen housing and how municipalities, government, if you will, interferes, gets in a way with homes. Well, that could be potentially said the same for generating businesses in Washington County. So would this shift to looking at county municipalities and their plethora of regulations and et cetera, and determine what is outdated? You know, and I'm sure there's hundreds of them, and they curtail or restrict, you know, some young entrepreneur that's looking to open up a business in downtown West Bend, for example. So that may be something for us to consider, is shift that focus of that workforce attraction to how should government help facilitate economic growth, because it shouldn't be in the driver's seat for economic growth. That's private industry, in my opinion. We can, you know, lead, follow, get out of the way, and are we on the way? I'm not sure.
Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will also comment on the workforce attraction, since I was asked for comments on, and I appreciate Supervisor Gallups' comments on that. I can agree with quite a bit of what he raised there. Some of my comments, and I haven't given this a lot of thought, so it's reactionary comments at best. But when I read or hear workforce attraction, I'm wondering, are we attracting them for being a worker, or are we attracting them to live here? And this is kind of in direct competition with trying to provide good quality housing, because we have housing shortages to start with. So why would we, for trying to attract the workers to live here, we're going to constantly be short on housing. So we're going to constantly be building. And so we're going to constantly be chewing up our farmland and shrinking the townships further, encouraging the urban sprawl that chews up this farmland. So the one part in this part here that is in bold, so I'm not sure why it's in bold, but it says to engage initiative to engage and implemented, which identifies displaced workers and their families and attracts them to Washington County to fill our jobs and grow our communities. So that to me sounds like we're attracting the people to move here versus, and I don't have any figures of unemployment rates or anything like that current for our area, but I would, whether we need to re-educate, push people to find new careers if needed to, you know, find new efforts that way. But if there's just a disconnect with the employers versus the skill sets, it's stuff like that more than just growing our population, because otherwise we're in a vicious circle that we'll never catch up to. We're always chasing our tail point is how I would feel. So take that with a grain of salt. It's this is not my main priorities that I've thought a lot about, but that's what I got.
Supervisor Bosser.
So I agree with a lot of what Supervisor Kelling said on workforce attraction. I think it makes sense to support our business community and invest ARPA money in this way. I mean, let's face it, we got way too much ARPA money. I think we all in this room would agree with that. The feds just dumped a ton of money on us. Let's invest it in ways that benefit our community. Let's develop a model, see if it works, make adjustments if we need to, but find some sort of recipe that attracts workers here. I think the Supervisor Gallups' point, this is a chance for us to lead and not be in the way. Thank you.
Supervisor Conrad.
Thank you, Chair. First, I really appreciate this open dialogue and supervisors coming prepared and supervisor, Krieger Gundrum putting herself out there and, even though, her comments might, or some of our comments here, people are thinking differently, but, if everyone's thinking the same, no one's thinking. So I agree, I appreciate this open dialogue and I hope other of you who are having some thoughts, as people, share their thoughts, please speak up and represent your constituents too, or so your constituents know how you're thinking. That's why I chime in, myself. But on that note, regarding the public safety, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. I too support keeping that. I hope you all do too. And part of that is, why people live here, right? We speak of the quality of life here and really the safety of our community. And we need to sustain that and look at all issues in this community and the drug court really addresses, a huge issue. We are not immune to the people who need the service of the drug court. And we want to ensure that individuals who need that have those support systems so we can help get them back to be, good members of our community and so that their loved ones and families know that they're, the community also supports them. So I just wanted to, chime in and say, also to what I'd like to keep that. I hope everybody else is feeling the same. If you feel differently, have some concerns, please speak up too. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to spirited discussion at executive. Next up is the Hart and Homestead presentation.
Good evening. So there's been a lot of progress that has been made on the Hart and Homestead program since I've talked to the county board back in August. Probably the biggest one is the new naming, the new brand of Hart and Homestead, and we've been working with Epic Creative on that. Before I get into all the great things that have been going on since August, as part of the branding process, we really did a deep dive on what this program really means and what the impact is going to be. And so I just want to take a moment and just read some of the language, the goal. It's really the essence of this incentive. So Hart and Homestead rewards those willing to serve their community with an incentive for the opportunity of home ownership. It is the investment in the incentive recipients that not only makes property ownership more attainable, but it signals to existing residents and local organizations that new buyers will be active members of the community, investing in enriching the quality of life of Washington County. At the core of Hart and Homestead is creating the opportunity for making home ownership more attainable and building strong social networks that are filled with people who are invested in building a great community. So that's really the essence of what we're trying to achieve with the Hart and Homestead incentive. So many things have been going on since August. We have been working diligently with our co-manager of this program, which is our Economic Development Washington County. We have put together a contract with them for the co-management. Everyone should have gotten a handout. On the second page of that handout, I just wanted to go through the process at a very high level. I did talk about this a little bit in August, but we've nailed down some of the details here. And EDWC is going to be handling the application component of the incentive. Get the applications, process the applications, determine who's approved, and then disbursement of the funds at closing. There's many steps to these, but then at closing is where the recipient is going to be introduced to the point of contact at the county. And then at that point in time, which is the green Washington County, they go through a 5-year earning period where they have an opportunity to earn the incentive through community service and financial giving. And then at the end of that 5-year earnings period, then there's a handoff back to the EDWC in terms of the release of the mortgage. So that's extremely high level, but it has been worked out many details to get to this point. So the application portal is going to launch noon on April 4th. There's going to be a link from the county website. We actually have our countdown clock. If you're interested in taking a look at that, I think we're down to 21 days and a few hours. So, and then we have our incentive tracking portal. This is where recipients are going to log into the county website, and they're going to be able to search the organization where they have done their volunteering or their financial giving, and be able to log those hours and dollars. And then the agency that's associated with will get pinged, and they'll be able to approve, to verify that yes, those recipients did put in that time or did donate those dollars. And then the county gets pinged again. And so every quarter, then we'll be looking at the dollars for each of the recipients, and twice a year, each of the recipients will be receiving a letter in the mail that identifies the number of hours or the amount that they've donated and what is remaining on their incentive balance. Yesterday, we completed a training for lenders, real estate agents, and title companies. We went through the whole application process and the earnings process. We will be starting marketing with Epic Incentive. That will happen next week. So you'll probably see things on our social media as well as in the newspaper. The one thing I did want to mention is that we do have our first recipient. I was very happy with the whole process. They are out of Jackson, and they were able to walk through the whole process in a paper format. It was a test process just to make sure we have all of our bases covered. Now the application process is all going to be online. Lastly, we do have our launch event set. You should have all received an invitation. That is happening on April 4th at 10 o'clock. So that's a very quick overview of what's been going on with the Heart and Homestead program. And I'm open for any questions.
Supervisor Kelly. Turn on your microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More a comment than a question. Read through the recipient qualifications, and I'm very pleased with what I read here, that the county is being very protective of this program, making sure that we're getting these to the right and deserving people, and hopefully encouraging them to our community, because it is designed to be something that gets people to get involved with our churches and our service groups, and we want the right kind of people, good families, however that's constructed, people who obey the law, obviously, and hopefully have at least have a decent credit rating, and come here to want to be a part of this community. So I'm just very pleased with what I read with qualifications, and I think when people go over and look at that, I don't think they're stringent by any means. I just think if you're a decent, hardworking family person, you would qualify under this program. So I'm very pleased with that. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Gallitz.
Thank you, Chair. Just remind me, how many dollars were fronted for this? So what's the pool that the WECW is working with?
Yeah, so, 2.5 million, I mean, these are ARPA funds. 2.5 million, was set aside for the Heart and Homestead program. We do have some amount in reserve. We do have an administrative fee, with EDWC co-managing, the application process. So essentially we have, enough funds right now, for 105 recipients. And we do intend to start reaching out to the business community, and hoping to increase that pool of money. Because there is a lot of benefit, to our business community as well as our nonprofit organizations for this program.
And obviously this could tie to next gen housing, but obviously not a requirement. Is there any thought, or thinking of how many next gen housing participants may take advantage of the, sorry, I don't have it memorized, Heart and Homestead?
Yeah, Heart and Homestead. Yeah, so, we, talked about that quite a bit, in the discussion as we were formulating, what the portfolio is going to look like. And we decided not to specifically set aside funds for next gen housing homes. But 75% of that portfolio is for new construction.
Thank you.
Guess we have no more comments, so thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Our next item is the introduction of Stacy Holland from County Fair Park.
I apologize, these were not prepared earlier, but short introduction today. Thank you very much for allowing me to introduce myself to the county board. I've had the opportunity to make the same introduction to the land use planning committee. I've had the opportunity to meet with a few individuals on this board. Welcome the same from others here as you would feel appropriate. First of all, again, thank you for having me. Just a real short introduction about myself, and then a brief introduction of my participation or role at the Agricultural and Industrial Society, and how I see that coming together in this board and the Land Use Planning Commission as well. So I am a lifelong resident of Washington County. I say that with a small asterisk. Recently, I got married. We did move just slightly south of the county, but we can talk about that later. But for over 50 years, I have lived here, born and raised in the town of Hartford, attended public schools, well, some small parochial schools and public schools in the county. I'm actually very proud of the fact that I'm a Hartford Union High School graduate. At the time, I was less than perhaps being impressed that I came from Hartford, Wisconsin, as I introduced myself out through the world and the business community. But as my career progressed and I reflected on the education I got at the public school in Hartford, I was just incredibly impressed, not only by myself, but a lot of my classmates attending some class reunions, just what was brought to me and what I was able to bring back to both my life and some of my peers from that high school. So kudos to those from that district, and nothing against the other public schools here in the county, but I'm a beneficiary of the decisions that are made here at the county board. I eventually married and I moved to Germantown. I did spend a few years living and working in West Bend at the Red Owl. If any of you remember that, if you're a West Bend resident, I may have checked you out at the grocery store, or you may have purchased stamps from me as a courtesy card. So if you have, nice to see you again. And so I've lived in this county my lifetime. I was, as a child, I went to the county fair in Slinger. I remember it vividly. We went every year. I looked forward to the county fair. As a young adult, I took my children to what would then be the new county fair park where I now work. Little did I know that then, but I would be coming back in this capacity. And finally, a little bit later in my parents' life, I had the great pleasure of taking my parents to the county fair where they always went every year when they could no longer drive. To still see their friends at the Farm Bureau stand, get their cheeseburger and their hamburger, and visit with their friends from the county where they also lived their entire lives. So, the fair park in this county is near and dear to my heart. I come into this position with a background that is not an agricultural or a fair background. My background is in business. I have worked as I'm mentioning here in several large multinational companies. The merging of those two things, I think, hopefully, as we speak forward in what the mission of AIS is and what I'd like to do for the county in this role, I think we'll come together in a very great fashion. What I found in the first 2 months here is that the experience that I lack in perhaps agricultures and fairs has really been supplemented by the agricultural community, as well as the residents of this community that have a passion for what is the county fair and the county fair park. So I really look to listen and learn in that avenue, as well as bring to bear some of my experience to help carry out the mission of AIS. So having said that, AIS, as you all know, has recently gone through a revisioning process and developed strategic missions for the future of that organization and how it partners with the county and how it partners with the county specifically to the fair park assets that we all support here at the county board. There are really 3 primary areas, and one being the county fair. Obviously, that is where the Agricultural and Industrial Society initially developed and how we received our charter as a not-for-profit. The goal of the county fair and the mission of AIS is to continue to operate the fair, to continue to grow the fair, and to make the fair, as they've quoted, the best county fair in the state of Wisconsin. I will say that's a very achievable goal because today, the Washington County Fair is in the top 3 county fairs in the state. It is a fair that we can all be extremely proud of. It is also a fair that has opportunity to continue to harvest, grow, develop, and make memorable moments for our residents, for new residents coming into the community, and also for the businesses that are here to promote what they have to offer. So really look to continue what is a great county fair and create some opportunities to just continuously improve. There's always room to grow, more fields to be harvested, as you would say in the farm community. And we look forward to bringing ideation and discipline and, fun to the fair, which we'd love to have. Secondly, agri and industrial development. This is an area where perhaps the organization in the past, I'm not quite sure how long, but at least the last decade or more, AIS has maybe not delivered. I'll just say that to its constituents, the agricultural and industrial industry itself, the members that may also serve on the Farm Bureau or be part of the Cedar Creek Land and Conservation Committees. I think there's a lot of opportunity for this organization to listen and learn and see what that group needs as a community of ag and industry, and see how we can partner with the existing not-for-profit groups that are here, how we can help promote them, how we can use the asset that is the fair park to bring them together and utilize that to help their organizations. And then lastly, the whole concept of 4-H in the community and education within the county. We have a great centrally located facility. We have opportunities to use that facility to help other organizations within the county that we support as a county. Not only 4-H, I think of things like the Threshold, United Way. There are opportunities for those organizations to leverage that facility that we have out there, that amazing asset, and help their organizations carry out their objectives as well. So I think through that partnering and that relationship, there's a lot of support that the Agricultural and Industrial Society can bring to bear with these existing organizations. How we'll do that just yet remains to be seen. I've been on the job for just a little under 2 months, but I have met some wonderful people in the community. I will continue to reach out and partner with the leaders of these not-for-profits and the leaders of these other organizations, such as the Farm Bureau and other agricultural and industrial societies, to reach not just the West Bend community, but also Hartford and Germantown, bring some of them up into the asset that is the fair park. And then lastly, the fair park itself, AIS has served as a tenant operator on behalf of the county, holding events at the county, both county events, 4-H events, as well as events that are for pay, if you will, revenue producing events at the county. That has been going on now for about 25 years since the fair park was commissioned on that site. And while there remains high utilization, I would say, at the Fair Park, so there's a lot of activity that is happening there during the week. My early perceptions of what's happening is that we can be better stewards of that asset. I think we better manage the events that we have in there. I think we can target events that will help support what was in the very aggressive packet of activities that was presented by Executive Showman. I think there are things that we can go out and seek out, both with the businesses within the county, drawing and attracting events that may promote agriculture, may promote the industry in our county that we have or would like to target to be in our county, workforce development initiatives. Those are all things we can be thoughtful of in terms of the events that we try to bring in. And today we are come by, and if we have space availability, we're happy to rent that to you. But as a county asset, I think it could be utilized in a more directed fashion to support specific county objectives. Short of course, taking weddings or small private events, not opposed to those. But there are a lot of wedding venues in the county, and I think if we had a directed event that weekend that would support a county initiative, it may be more well received in a strategic kind of effort and initiative. So I think a greater balance towards some of those, as well as, again, opening it up as a county facility to the residents. Again, this is very early in my tenure here, so I really look for developing 3-year goals and making them measurable and making them supported underneath these initiatives that are part of AIS. I really look to be extension of the county the county board, and obviously through the Land Use and Planning Commission. Again, as stewards of the county, we are tenant operators on your behalf of that facility, and so it is, it's beholden on me to make sure that those objectives of the organization that I work for are aligned with the objectives of this board. With that, I want to say thank you for your time. I also want to promote my county fair that we will all hopefully be at July 23rd through 28th. We hope to see you at the fair, and we will always be looking for volunteers. So I love this new program. Whoever first signs up on the housing, we will have positions for you to volunteer at the fair. So we'll be first in line. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome aboard. We look very much forward to seeing your success.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Supervisor Kelly.
Ms. Holland, just before you go, sorry about that. Thank you so much for that presentation. This is certainly a long ways away from where we were a few years ago. I'm sure you probably know, I don't need to rehash all that. But you see from our strategic priorities that this is a hard charging group of people. We fight hard, we play hard, and we expect results of ourselves and certainly of the fairgrounds. So I'm very excited to see what you have in store for us, and also understand that everybody in this room completely supports the fair and the fair park. And I don't think that gets said quite enough. I mean, a lot of us do volunteer for the fair as well. So it is very important to us. Its success is very important to our county and our quality of life, which is part of our strategic priorities. And I'm really looking forward to working with this, with you and with the new AIS and under new circumstances. I think this is a very good day for Washington County.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for those comments. I concur. The evolution from what was the county fair in Slinger to the last 25 years of Fair Park, which again, we will commemorate this year. This will be the 25th year since the commissioning of that Fair Park. I would ask you all to join us for that event. There'll be more details on that, but we'd like to honor some of the OG, as you would call it, the original board members and folks who were behind the Fair Park at that event. But I think it also opens the door to what can the Fair Park be under the broader vision of the county, and how can we utilize that asset, going forward with the next 25 years. I also want to thank the board. I wasn't here for the approval of the upgraded investment funds that were so desperately needed there, but thank you. Also good timing as we move forward, I think, with the new face, and new mission at AIS, and the support of the board in that investment. It will be very well aligned.
Thank you again. Our next item is resolution 66, commendation of Jill Rafe Schmidt. Motion in a second, please. Supervisor Chadwin, Supervisor Conrad.
Whereas Jill Rafe Schmidt has contributed 33 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Jill Rafe Schmidt has chosen to retire from her present position of communications supervisor with the Sheriff's Office, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Jill Rafe Schmidt for her 33 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to her heartfelt thanks for her many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Jill Rafe Schmidt as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
Second, Supervisor Pollock, Supervisor Chuck.
Whereas Kelly Caesar has contributed 16 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Kelly Caesar has chosen to retire from her present position of accounting specialist with the Sheriff's Office, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Kelly Caesar for her 16 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to her heartfelt thanks for her many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Kelly Caesar as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
Next up is 2023 Resolution 69, County aided bridge and culvert replacement for the town of Jackson. Motion by Supervisor Chadwin, Supervisor Toma, second. Any discussion, questions, comments? Supervisor Krebs.
You need help?
Oh,
Oh, sorry. That's weird. It's not even open. You good now?
Here you go, Brian.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question, Scott, in the resolution, it says that the work was done in 2023. I think the following resolution is similar. Not the similar resolution, but the committee report was the same. Do we typically allow construction 1 year and funding in the next? Because I know there's some municipalities take terms on that when they're able to apply.
Yes, with this fund, recall, we do fund this about $100,000 a year. Unfortunately, the other townships took advantage of the full $100,000. So last year there was no money in the funds to fund this project. So that's why they did it last year in hopes of getting funded this year. Again, in November, when you approve this year's budget, you approve another $100,000 into that segregated account for road and bridge aid, or county, bridge and culvert aid. And so that's where the money came from. So they did it last year because of such bad condition, in hopes that the board, and we have done this in the past, would approve it in the subsequent year.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? Supervisor.
Thank you. Scott, could you just summarize? I know there's been some confusion on where this funding comes from. Could you just cover that so everybody's on the same page?
Yes, thank you Supervisor Newman. Yes, this is a tax. If those that are in the towns look at their tax bill, there's a separate line item for county bridge and culvert aid that's on there. It does not go to the residents in the villages or cities, but it's basically a tax that's put on the town residents to help other towns replace culverts or bridges. You recall in this past session, we went down to a 36-inch culvert or larger to match up with state code. So any culvert that's 36 inches or larger up to a bridge is eligible for 50-50 funding with the county. And as you know, that been here, we've done numerous through the past 2 years. I don't have the number off the top of my head. I'm guessing probably have half a dozen or so, maybe 4. And so that's how that system works. So the county doesn't take advantage of that. That does not go to any county bridges or culverts. That's really any other town that wants to take advantage of that. So if the county's doing a culvert, we don't take funds from that location. It is a chance that the county might do the culvert for the town. And for instance, the town of Jackson we worked alongside with their town personnel to replace this particular culvert to help save the project a little bit of funding as well. Hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Help you.
Thank you. I understood it well. To summarize it, it's a tax the towns pay, the towns utilize.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Correct.
make that statement so everybody understands that maybe didn't before. Thank you.
There being no other comment, we'll vote electronically. This is a simple majority. It passes unanimously. Our next item is resolution 71, general fund,
70.
70, setting county elected official salaries. Motion in a second, please. Supervisor Schultheis. Supervisor Hardwick. Question or discussion? Supervisor Conrad.
Thank you. I had some comments from constituents and some township leaders just yesterday regarding this resolution and the incremental increases. That there is, some concerns with that. Yes, we're trying to sustain that 75th percentile is what I explained was the goal, and to attract essentially high quality individuals. But I did get pushback on these numbers and incremental increases. They essentially individuals approved this just this coming year, but did not want me to approve the following for 26 and 27 and 28 moving forward. So I just wanted to make that statement. And especially too, they had shared that these are elected positions. And so there was concern about those, those salary numbers.
Thank you. Any other discussion? There being none, we'll vote electronically.
Passes 1 no.
Passes 19-1.
Hold on, I can choose. Yep.
So now we'll go on to resolution 71, general fund transfer and 2024 budget amendment. Motion in a second, please. Supervisor Westfalik, Supervisor Toma. Any questions or discussion? There being none, we will vote electronically. Supervisor Gallitz.
I couldn't help, actually, Executive Showman kind of alluded to a couple of these earlier where we were making some either modifications or adjustments to that campus plan. So does this align with that?
So the request for office space does not change the physical space. It's just actually bringing in, it's changing the space within that office and bringing in like new desks and sort of they're changing their workflow, but it's not changing their current space at all. In the long-term campus plan, there is a plan to build out and move them somewhere else, including adding on a morgue. But obviously that has not, we've not had any discussion at the county board level about making plans that way. So this is just providing them improved space and workflow for the immediate future.
Thank you.
I could tab onto that too. What this allows was the area that you'll see coming up with the sheriff wants to do some remodeling. And so this works well in conjunction with that. So the area that the sheriff's looking at remodeling to utilize was a potential area for the coroner and medical examiner to use. But they found a way to use their current area instead. So it was a very good collaborative effort.
Anyone else wish to speak? We will vote electronically. This requires a 2/3 majority. It passes unanimously. The next item is resolution 72, reauthorization for self-insurance for workman's comp. Supervisor Kelly. Supervisor Vespali. Any questions, discussion? This is a thing that comes up every 3 years, so we're simply redoing it. Supervisor Gallitz.
Thank you. So typically, if you're out in the market, you have a mod factor. Just curious, what do we monitor our own successes or failures from a workers' comp perspective with any number of our departments?
We do. That's something that we take a look at. We've gotten opinions on mod factors in the past as well. So yes, that is something we look at and we maintain.
Curious, what would that mod factor be? Do you know roughly?
The last information I saw was 1.1.
Okay, so in the positive.
In the positive, and really it historically it's been lower than that. So.
All right, we'll vote electronically on this also. It passes unanimously. Our next item is ordinance 12 to amend shoreline wetland flood zone plans in the town of Erin. Supervisor Mary. Supervisor Milliken. Any questions or discussion? We'll vote electronically. Also passes unanimously. Our next item is ordinance 13 to amend the shoreline wetland zoning, floodland zoning maps in the town of Polk. Motion in a second, please. Supervisor Hartwig, Supervisor Conrad. Any questions or discussion? Covered quite completely in land use and planning. We'll vote electronically.
Unanimous.
Also unanimous. And our last item is ordinance 14 to amend section 15.6 relating to the procedural rules. Motion in a second, please. Supervisor Krebs, Supervisor Mary. If you read through this, it simply reflects what we've actually been doing in all the 8 years that I've been on, and I think forever. So we're just writing it the way it should be. So we'll vote electronically. Passes unanimously. Thank you all. Our next meeting date is Tuesday, April 16th at 7:30 a.m. Good evening.